We are back. We're back from vacation. We're back into the grind. We're getting back into our normal routine. I'm starting a little late this morning. I wanted to sleep in a bit. Flight got back in. I was wiped out for the day, so I just crashed. But we're getting back into our routine starting today. So give me a chance to check my signal, go through my intro spiel, and then we're going to get into some spellcasting art for the day. Hold on real quick. Let's see if we come through clean. Hold on real quick. Mic check. See if we come through clean. Yep, sounds pretty good to me. All right, and I'm just gonna go through my intro spiel here real quick, and then we'll get to work. So hold on here. Prep. Clip. Okay, intros away. Hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements. I publish them online. We create them here on stream. The text, the mechanics, the development, the page layouts, the artwork, the publication. It's we stream the process here for people that are interested in knowing what it can take to go into producing a role-playing game or role-playing game supplements. There is a slew of work that I've already published. I primarily work in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons right now, and there is a slew of work that I've already published. That's in various in the descriptions down below. Be welcome to check out some of the work. You can read all of it in the previews. And amongst the works that are clipped there's probably about 150 illustrations. So if you're here for the art, that'll give you an idea of the kind of art that I produce. If you're here for the mechanical design and the 5e feels, then welcome to the mix. If you like any of the work, be welcome to incorporate them into your game. If you want to support the channel, making a purchase or two is certainly appreciated. I've just published that I am live on stream through Twitter. So if you are a Twitter user, I'm at Phil Kearney, Filkearney. I always publish no matter what. That is where I am streaming. And otherwise, we can best support the channel by here on YouTube. Like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon. To help me build the channel. I'm at 170 subscribers right now. I want to get to 1,000 so that we can start monetizing the channel, and so I can push myself towards doing this more and more hours a day than just a couple hours here and there. So we are going to, what are we doing? So we develop role-playing game supplements, we do layouts, and then we do artwork. So for the past year, we've been working on the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration supplement. That is an extension of mechanics and subsystem tools for players and DMs to be able to explore space and have much faster pace, 5e combat style ship combat, where you're taking the normal action economy of a round as a team, individually making contributions to the success of the ship in combat, as well as mixing that with your own individual actions at the 5-foot scale as a creature, at the 50-foot scale as a ship, at the 500+ foot scale at distant combat or exploration in general, up to 100 million miles per day of travel, which is how spelljamming ships work. It's pirate ships in space. It's Treasure Planet. It's super fun, and we're getting into the artwork of like the different. Like I need to build a grid here underneath this to depict that backstep. When we last left off, I realized that I had some errors in my text. So we went back through, we added in just, I think, better language to explain how these systems work. So here's an example. In the illustration to the right, an entangled spell. Okay, so we're talking, if you were here with us last week, we were talking about spellcasting with Spelljammer ships. And a big feature of this supplement is the sense of scale, where at 5 feet, you've got critters running around, you got players and stuff doing normal D&D stuff. The way that Wizards resolved Spelljammer's Adventures in Space was to get the ships to dock or to align next to each other so that you could stay at the 5-foot scale and basically do like a siege, as though this were, each ship is a fort with the top deck being the wall of the fort. Essentially, you want to get your ship so that you're next to the other one and jump from one fort to the next. That's how Wizards approached it. It's a very simple solution. It resolves the job, but that's kind of the complaint that people have about Wizards specifically, not necessarily 5th edition, but just Wizards in general, that they go for the lowest hanging fruit solutions that don't necessarily match the flavor of what they're trying to achieve. So we saw that with Dragonlance, with the lack of detail towards troops and actually having an army or a military campaign. We're seeing that again here in Spelljammer. And the reason why I started playing, creating 5e content was because of the lack of color identity in all of the Magic the Gathering settings that they've released 3 of them so far. They have Ravnica, Strixhaven, and Theros, and none of them are using any kind of color identity from Magic the Gathering, which is where which is the bridge between people in Magic the Gathering and D&D. So if you want to check the color mana spell point variant rules that I created, that'll show you what got me into 5e design in the first place, and pretty much set the tone for the kind of work that I do, which is, if we really wanted to lean into these ideas, here's what you could do mechanically to express that, to make the narrative, ludonarrative, as Riker in the Cleric Corner often says, is when a mechanic of a game is complementary and reinforces the narrative of the game. So in the instance of, like, say, color mana, if you're going to play a blue-red wizard, say an Izzet Artificer, then being able to express that Artificer using the language of Magic the Gathering of blue and red magic leans your character further into the color magic fantasy that Magic the Gathering is based on. That's ludonarrative, having a color mana spell point variant rule for 5e that works with the 5e mechanics, but better expresses the narrative of, I am a blue-red artificer in the the Izzet Guild. That's a strong ludonarrative that bonds those 2 IPs closer together, which is what that supplement does. So you're welcome to check that out and check out the free preview. One of our projects in 2024, once 1D&D is released, is we're going to rework all of those books. And if you've already bought them, then you'll get the update for free when you go back and look at the updates. So stay tuned with me for when I have those updates. But one of our projects, once in 2024, once 1D&D is released, is updating all that stuff to align with what D&D becomes, regardless of whether we like it or not. That's the job. So that's what I'll be doing. But then we can still use those mechanics for our own works in the future. So having said all that, again, this combat and exploration supplement that we're building leans into the ludonarrative of, we have these ships that can move at incredible speeds at significantly larger scale than what people are that you would be fighting in combat. What do we need to do to be able to create a elegant system that can smoothly scale in and out from the 5-foot dungeon crawl, I'm climbing onto your ship to stab you, and be able to zoom out to these ships are engaging in combat at the larger scale in dogfights as part of fleets, and zoom out further as where do they actually sit inside of the astral sea, or while traveling between worlds, how do they sit inside a wild space in the system that you're in. So the scaling system, and we've looked at a lot of the stuff in the past episodes. So we're now getting into, now that we're happy with all the language that explains how to do the scaling system, we're specifically looking at the chapter on spellcasting. How do you affect spells so they're significant in combat or exploration when you're moving beyond the 5-foot scale into the 50-foot or 500 or even larger scales. So that's what this is what this section of the supplement does. And while we're working on it, we came to the realization that some of the language that I was using was a little hinky. So I had to go back through and fix it. So we're talking about areas of effect. When you're firing off a spell into wild space where there's literally nothing around a ship for millions of miles, but you tag that ship with a spell, what do you need to do to hit the whole ship as though it were a creature in combat? If we were to scale out, this ship is 200 feet long, while this little ship here is only 15 feet. So how do we scale this stuff out to be able to be meaningful in combat beyond the 5-foot scale, but still to keep the same mechanical language as we have at the 500 or the 50-foot scale? Well, amplifying spells is the solution that we have. When we talked about this last session before I went on vacation, so now we're back here. The basics of it is that if you add additional spell slots whether upcasting or just simply paying an extra first or second level spell slot, you can increase the scale of the spell from a 5-foot normal scale to 50 foot for one slot, or a 500-foot scale for two spell slots. Similarly, fighter craft, which are 50 feet or smaller, can be affected by a first level spell slot, and vessels that are up to basically anywhere from more than 50 feet to 500 feet is basically how vessels are defined. Like the Star Moth is 200 feet. I need to put a grid behind this to depict the 50-foot scale that these things are operating in. But that's so increasing the spell slot, I can target an entire vessel as though it were one creature if I increase the spell slot by 2. So in the example that we're using, the Entangle spell, to be able to fully affect the ship, it has to be able to fit inside that space. So I need to increase the space that the Entangle spell operates at to be able to encompass the ship. So we reworked the language. So what we're depicting here is, in the illustration to the right, an Entangle spell amplified with a second level spell slot has a range of 9,000 feet and affects a 2,000 foot area. If the only object within the area is a Starmoth ship, which we have depicted here, which would be, let's grab this. Starmoth ship 1. The ship itself is not affected. If the only object within the area is a Starmoth ship, the ship itself is not affected. Rather, any creature within the 200-foot space, and we'll have a grid here, 4x4 at 50-foot scale, occupied by the vessel is. So if I cast Entangle on the deck of the ship, all of the creatures on the deck or within the area of the ship is going to be affected by that. If another ship subsequently enters the initial 2,000-foot space, this is where the 2 would be here. If another ship subsequently enters the initial 2,000-foot space, it isn't affected by the spell unless it enters the space of the Starmoth, 2, and then 3. Because the Starmoth is affected, so would thus the ship. Objects flying above a targeted subject area can be affected while occupying the same space as the targeted area. A spell cast normally affects objects within 5 feet. Above the targeted surface, a spell amplified with a first level spell slot affects objects within 50 feet above the targeted surface if the surface area is also 50 feet or more in size. A spell amplified with a second level spell slot affects objects within 500 feet above the targeted surface if the, for example, hold on, where's my, let's throw this thing open real quick and go in here and fix it. Typo. Effect. There. Yeah, I like where those are positioned. So if the only object in the area is a Starmoth ship, 1. Nice. If another ship subsequently enters the initial 2,000-foot space, 2. It isn't affected by the space unless it enters the space of the Starmoth, 3. Period. There we go. Let's see. If the spell is amplified, okay, for example, an Entangle spell cast normally can affect any creature within 5 feet above the targeted surface. If the spell is amplified with a second level spell slot to target an area in the surface of a 1-mile diameter asteroid, anything within 500 feet above the 2,000-foot area of effect. Above the 2,000, if the spell is amplified with a second level spell slot to target an area on the surface of a 1-mile diameter asteroid, above the, damn it, is affected. Period. This is why we do these things. It's not embarrassing to have to make these fixes. It's great. It's one of the great benefits of doing these illustrations on the page and reviewing the information as we go is to make sure that we're fixing all this stupid shit. We have an editor for this. He's done a ton of work. I'm just doing some spot work here. Now that we know what the formatting is that our editors approve for how this information is the language that we use, we can pick up and duplicate it when we have to do little spot fixes like this. If the entangled spell amplified with a second level spell slot instead targets the top decks of the 200-foot Starmoth vessel, the ship occupies a space. There we go. One. The ship occupies a space smaller than 500 feet, so the spell only affects objects within 50 feet above the top deck. There. Resolved. All right, cool. So I'm happy with how this looks. I'm not necessarily happy with the arrow though. So we're figuring out. We had it when we last left off. We had this flipped where these ships were coming in from this angle, but the flow of information. Right now, what we're messing with is flow of information. How am I supposed to present this thing so that it makes sense? I can get rid of these tags now. There. I can center this up. Like that. And I need a font. I need to establish a font for how these things sit on the page, and I have not yet done that. Let's see. Let's go to 8. Let's make 10. Let's make our font 10, just to... No. Let's go to 5. There's some elegance to 5. Where do I... How do we want to establish... I should really have like a font, you know, some sort of a font. How about we do this? A 50-point dot, and then perhaps we put a 5-foot. Yeah, that's out of balance. Hey, Hornetico. How you doing, my guy? Trying to build a font here. What a pain in the ass. I hate fonts. You're one of my nemeses. Do like that, maybe. 2. Curviness. Fatten it up a little bit. That might be okay. Once I build a 2 once, I don't have to build it again. I can just cut and paste it from elsewheres and fetch it. I'll probably be needing little numerical icons like this again throughout the work. That looks pretty decent. I'm happy with that. Bring you the number 2. I don't want it overwhelming. So we have 1, 2, and 3 now established in the text. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to actually file, export, creative. Let's go to spellcasting. Quick page 48. That was the absolute wrong way to do that. I forgot to do. Okay, this is Phil. This is great. I'm trying to export this single page as a PDF so I can drop it into Photoshop, but I didn't do all the all the fixes and clicks and stuff. So instead, I made a full document with all the nomenclature and all the notation stuff off to the side, which is ultra dumb. So we're gonna go ahead and kill that. Let's try that again. File equals export PDF. Go back to spellcasting, quick page 48. Now we have to actually go into the options. Instead of all pages, we're just gonna do the current page. Document without showing markup. None of the properties or structure tags. And blah, 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 that's good. That should be a-okay equals replace, yes. Kicks it out, PDF, thank you. And then we go into, back into Photoshop, file, open, quick page 48, click on that, 300 DPI equals okay. Then we copy everything, come back down to here, paste. See, it automatically aligns. If I take the page here and I copy the whole document here, like the entire page, copy it, and then paste it, Photoshop is aware of the blank information along the borders here, so it properly sizes it to the space that's entering, and it auto aligns. Where's my bit? Hold on. Yeah, there we go. So here's the original page, and then here's the new page. You can see everything is 100% lining up until you get to the revisions that we made in the text. Now everything's wonky, so I can get rid of that, delete, and I can lock this down, text there, and I pan back out again, and you can see now that we have the 1, 2, 3. Here's number 2 here, and then we'll have 3 here. that works. So the great thing about Photoshop with the PDFs here is that it just, again, it automatically aligns itself to the page. So when I extract a page from the document and drop it into Photoshop, it's going to respect the margins that we established in the document so that we're able to pick up and move those things over directly. So yeah, there you go. It's actually pretty easy. So when we make this, so when we finish this illustration, we'll be able to pick this thing, this up, this alone as a dot, as an image, and then we can align the shape of it to be at the edge. Like for instance, if we were to cut this out, I can put the box like the full-size box like that, but I can align the box to the edge of the text here on D and at the top of the T. So when I go in and I make this free transform, transform selection, and then I can align it to the border. To the bottom of the text there, and I can actually push this all the way out to the edge of the page. Oops. Like that. There. So when I copy this, it's being wonky. There you go, marching ants. When we copy this, we can then drop it directly into this exact same space, aligning along the right end margin here, and it'll automatically fit inside that same space that we've established here with the F and the T being our points. I can actually that'll end up being our target area. So I'm going to so I can come back in, I can reselect this later. But this is the size of the spot illustration that we're doing. So when we build out our background color texture for the page, we can make the color, the page itself, the background texture, 150 DPI, and then have that sit as a background inside the full document. That just, I didn't need to hit spacebar. Wrong tool, Kearney. We can drop in the background 150 DPI as a faded background behind this text, so it's not just white on gray. We'll have just a tiny little taste of color in there just to give the eye something to grab at. And then when we build our navigation rail here at the bottom of the page, we'll be able to create shapes similar to this that we have here. We'll be able to create a bottom rail that looks like it's the width of the page. There. That's the exact size of the margin, and then we can create a shape like this and drop that into the gutter here and have that only be a, say, 100 DPI, probably 150 DPI, a low resolution rack here that we can then, like we were talking about, have the table of contents, equipment and ships, combat, spellcasting, which is where we're at right now, exploration, ship hazards, creatures, system generator, and then Light of Xaryxis conversion guide appendix 2. Appendix 1 is the system generator, and appendix 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need 9 navigation icons down here. evenly spaced across the page, so that when we drop them down into the gutter here, we can hyperlink them, so that we can, each of the little icons that we create, like circles, like little circles like this with little iconography, like image font, like little image icon things, so that when you click on them, they'll take you to that appropriate location. We can have an on and off switch for each section, so you know which section you're inside of. But then we'll also, when we build the PDF, we'll have the, a good PDF has table of contents that are bookmarks for all the different sections of the book, which we will build a table of contents into the Microsoft Word section here. So like spellcasting here is a section chapter. We'll have hyperlinks so that you can jump from the table of contents to any of like amplified spell effects and amplifying spells and notable spells themselves. We can jump. Oh my God, I forgot to set my timer. Hold on, I gotta be right back. But that's what we're going to end up doing. We're going to end up doing that navigation like that. Hold on. All right, we got a 20-minute timer going. And we're at 7:12 now. I'll give myself at least another hour. So yeah, we'll need 9 icons down here, and we'll probably, once we finish out the initial spot art for the spellcasting section, we'll then spend we'll spend our mornings creating those icons to create that bottom rail, and then we'll be able to integrate them in here. So basically what we'll end up doing is cutting and pasting that rail. Each of the icons that we drop down here, we can create an invisible font, an invisible text bubble for like chapter, ships, combat. Like we can make invisible fonts, and then we can hyperlink them. So when you're mouse over each of the icons that we'll have, they'll each be click sensitive, so they'd be able to send you to the front of the book or whichever chapter it's on specifically, while the PDF itself will have each individual topic as a side rail here, but at the bottom it'll have that navigation bar so that you can just click on it and it'll take you to the appropriate section right away, which isn't super necessary because of the nature of the PDF with the bookmark rail that we'll have here down the side. Once this thing is built, it'll have you can just click on any of the table of contents anytime that you want. It's more aesthetic brag rights than anything else. It's just like doing something cool with the content that you're producing to have that bottom rail there. And so that anytime you can jump from a section to section. We're also going to hyperlink the hell out of this book to take you from one section to another, as we're referencing different points of conversation in here. As you saw, there's all these little sidebar things going on here. These are all hyperlinks taking you to different sections of the book that are relevant to the conversation point. Like we're looking at fleet reload scores here. Where is this one? Hold on. Right, so fleet melee reach. Fleet melee attacks are limited to the same scale as listed in the squadron section above. So if you click on that, it'll take you back to the squadron section above to remind you of how fleet melee reach stuff works for squadrons. So that's a hyper specific example, but we have it all throughout here. Whenever I'm referencing a rule, you can go back, like squadron section here. It's talking about squadrons. So it's hyperlinking back to the squadron section, the appropriate squadron section. So we can hyperlink all these things as targets. Like the siege weapons and crew here, it's talking about squadrons. Our squadron crews follow the general rules of siege weapon crews as detailed above in the following considerations. So when this thing is done, if we click on that, it'll take us up to the ship weapons section, weapons and crew, which would be list of ship weapons. Beginning of the section is more weapons and crew. So if you clicked on that link, it'll take you back here so that you can refresh your memory on how these ship and weapon crew mechanics work, so that you can go back down and understand how squadrons and fleets modify these the use of these weapons when you have multiple ships using these weapons at the same time to make a simultaneous attack against a target, if you're using squadron and fleet mechanics in your encounter. So that's, anyway, so the thing's going to be hyperlinked like hell. And we have the and we have the navigation bar here that'll lead you to each individual topic of conversation. But then for aesthetics, we build out the rail down here at the bottom of the screen, so that it's you want to have filigree or some sort of interesting artistic notation along the edges of your page, so that the margin is recognized, not ignored, that you're using that negative space, that meta space, as being self-aware that this text is inside of a page document, that by having a navigation rail or filigree along the edges, it basically helps literally frame the text that's on the page, but also use that space to help lean into the aesthetics of the document that you're working with the type of art that you choose to use in the margins, to then help reinforce the text that's inside of that space. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna go back down into here. I'm gonna grab this, we're gonna cut that out. And then we're gonna go down to here. There. We'll go with nav rail. So the nav rail here, we have here and here. This is page background. So this, when we work on, we'll break up this book into chapters like we have here with spellcasting. Spellcasting is a simple chapter, so I thought it'd be a fun one to start with. But as we go through this process of illustrating the interior art, we're going to break up each section by chapter. So we'll finish out the 10 pages that we have here in the, I'm going to drop the opacity here down to 50. Thank you. And as we go through, we can just pick up this page background. We'll next week, or whenever we're satisfied with the doodles that we have for the spellcasting chapter, we'll go and we'll build a navigation rail, any filigree along the edges, as well as the actual background text, the actual texture color background at that lower DPI, which will then be able to take this folder of page background information, pick that up, and drop them into each chapter so that they're auto-fused into each page. This becomes this block here becomes the background art, like we were just talking about. That whole section becomes the backdrop for each page in here at a low DPI, so it doesn't cause a lot of stress on the file size of the document when it all gets bound down into the individual PDF. So that's just walking through the process with you guys. So I'm pretty happy. Beep, 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 beep. There we go. Take that to there and that to there. I'll drop it into the background there. So far, so good. So what? So back to work. What are we working on now? We are continuing, actually. I have a 2. Now we're going to build, duplicate, and then duplicate. One, 2, 3. So we need to make our 1, and we need to make our 3. I don't have specific positions where I want to put number bubbles yet, but I know we need to figure out. Where's my number bubble? Hello? It's around here somewhere. Oh, did I fuse that with... No. There we go. 3, 2, 1. Good. Arrow. I'm not sure if we want to keep an arrow. That's certainly not a finished arrow icon. Hey, I still have trouble figuring out how good looking rail effects like that. There's, you know, you just got to keep doing it, you know. I'm no expert on it either, honestly. I just keep fighting it until I like the aesthetics. Like, let's go on a quick jaunt over here to DMsGuild. And I don't know. Hey, let's use our stuff that we have here. So we have the Color Mana Spell Point Variant Rule Bundle, and let's go to this one specifically, and we can open up the full size preview. Oh, no, this one is so simple, it doesn't have anything at all. Let's go to Point Warlocks, and then look at the full preview. Cover. Here's the rail that I built here. So it has, this one is super generic, that has up here in the corner. I'm not sure if I like how those numbers look, but when you look at them at a distance, they come through as a 3. And you got a 4. Like, these were individually drawn numbers I did. I have no idea why I did that, but I built this framing here to, again, create this frame space. And this implies that there should be stuff in the circle here and here. So when I rebuild this, I'm probably going to build different framing. But this was an example of how to create little blocks here that are reflected, that are mirrored here left and right, as well as up and down. So that's a really generic way to block stuff in, but it's not necessarily good. Let's go look at the elemental key that I created. Get past the first page. I have a wind effect here at the top, and this is a way to frame introduction, different sections here, the elemental key and disciplines. And here I was just using a generic, I think this is Helvetica that I was using, but you have wind here at the top, and then you have mountains here at the bottom, and then you have fire pushing up the page. So those are the ways that I was attempting to integrate some of the icons or the elemental language into the structure. And here you see that I'm using the little space that I opened up, and I just dropped a font as a just a word, just a text block. I think it's Roboto that I'm using down there in the corner. But I built this hole here so I could specifically drop it in, and as I go from even page, odd pages over here on the right, because when you open this up here, you don't have the option here as a preview, but here you go. You can do a 2-page view. So this is page 2, and 2. Don't think we have an option to. When you open up something in Adobe Reader or font, if you don't have the cover as part of the intro, then this page 2, this would be even, this would be odd. So it looks a little weird here in the presentation. I should probably fix that as well. But this should be even and odd so that these two things create a frame around each other that goes. This should be reversed. So I should probably get rid of the cover in the sample, so you have the 2, 3, and then 4, 5, and then 6, 7. Anyway, so that's not built the best way. I can probably fix that. Here, let me embarrass myself for y'all. Show you how to not do what I did. But the point that I was trying to make is that each of these, I mean, this is just a sample version, so screw you. You should go buy the book. But this one here, in this one, we have a nav bar up here at the top. So if I click that, it takes you back to the table of contents. But I don't have, down here I have a rail that's showing you the page number, and I just have a very wiry looking filigree here that leads into the number bubble. But then here at the top of the page, if I click that, it takes you to the table of contents. If I click this, it takes you to the mana flow chart that we built for this. So you can go to your table of contents, and again, it's this sample isn't properly set up, but everything is bookmarked. So like you can click here, spell point variant rules, and you can table of content. Let's go look at simplified durations. So here's the simplified durations chapter, and I can take you back to the chapter menu here. We can look at sources of magic. We can take that back to the table of contents, spell point variant rules, and at any time we can take it back down to the mana flow chart. So you see, you can make these little navigation buttons. I drew this as the background, and then in the actual Word document, again, I made a transparent bubble that was hyperlink clickable, and I just lined up the bubble over the, and see, I'm on the mana flowchart page, so there's no clickable bubble here. I'm already in that section, but I can take this back to the table of contents, and I can go to the mana flowchart, and blip, it'll take me there. So you can build cool things like this, and this isn't necessarily, this is earlier work, so it's ugly as char. But like say, for example, the Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica book is a later work that I produced. So if we go and look at the full color sample, the full page samples here, this is also hypersensitive. But the type of rail that we built here was basically taking this Ravnica tower structure idea and a bridge and using the frame of the bridge to create the number bubble space. But I'm in this in the Spelljammer book, I'm not going to bother with page count numbers because I don't intend for you to print it. Plus, all the page numbers are auto tracked in Photoshop. In the I closed it. If yeah, here we go. If I open this here, it tells you what page number you're on automatically. So I don't necessarily need, and I'm getting away from investing time in putting the page number in the document when the document already tells you what page number it is when you go to the page skip. And I keep everything hyperlinked so you can jump from section to section. So when I do this, again, we'll have the bottom rail roughly the same space. So that's the size for each of the fonts we'll have going across here. So, but yeah, this is but you can see that the aesthetics that I change along the way, I can customize each of these filigree and border space stuff to match the document. This one, I was keeping it very simple and similar to the type of layout that, or the type of the work that they already had in the Ravnica book. So this is a similar font color and style as what's in the Ravnica book. You can go find a PDF of the Ravnica book someplace if you want to take a look at that, or if you own it, you can flip open any page and see that. But yeah, there's just different styles that we can do. So each book has its own solutions that we create. And again, like if I have an illustration that's on the bottom of the page here, I can get rid of the rail altogether if I want to push it out to the edge of the page, or I can respect the frame and keep it within it. But in this particular work, I broke frame because there's such minimal rail on the bottom, on the footer space, that I could break frame easily, and that works. But I think with the Spelljammer book, I'm going to keep in frame so that I won't push past this border. So anything that I build will hit the edge of this page, and this is where all those dots will be. So there's a there'll be a natural border at the end of the page for all the navigation bar. So anyway, ramble on. I'm kind of talking out of my ass a lot. But yeah, here's the chapter header that we created. But this, like, there's no top page or sidebar stuff here beyond the footer unless you get to a section chapter, in which case we have this circuitry built that frames around the chapter section and then pushes down the page. And then again, this art is eating up all the bottom of the page, so there's nothing there, but there it is. It shows up again. Here it's gone. And we also did this page tear idea. I'm not sure if I'm not going to be retaining that for the Spelljammer book, but it was fun to build that out as a way to frame the bottom of the page inside of the interior space. But I won't be using that. I'm going to be doing a fade effect for this future works. Like when we get the grid down here, we'll fade out the grid so that the text bleeds over the image. So different ways of formatting stuff. This is a hardline format here, but it also fades here. This one, I just did a fade in, tear page here instead of fading into the text. It really depends on whether the background is ongoing or if it has just a natural fade. Like I don't need to do a hard break here because there's nothing really going on in this background. So I could afford to do a fade out here, but I'm literally cutting this guy off at the legs. So I wanted to have a hard cut there because a fade looks cheap and sloppy. So you can have hard breaks and you can have soft fades depending on basically what the composition of the illustration, the spot art, whether it's a floating vignette or it's a hard line space that you're defining. So like in the example here, once I get the grid down, and yeah, let's go. Don't need to save that. Yeah, let's go fetch a grid. Let's open. Let's go to vessel tokens. Star moth. So here's the 4x4 area that the star moth fills. So we can, but the language of the illustration is beyond the 4x4 space that this fits. But it's along the right edge. So we actually, here, I can close this out now that we're done talking about that. Hopefully that made some sense. I'm kind of rambling a bit, man. And obviously, I mean, I'm still getting good at it too, but that's the great thing about the DMsGuild. It's a great place for you to play with ideas and cut your teeth. Well, when I move, I think after another couple of these, I'll be pretty good at building rails. And so once I start moving into my own space, I can, I should be able to like establish like a brand look to the work that I do. That's the end goal anyway. But what were we doing? Oh, right, vessels. So this is a 4x4 space that the star moth fills. But the depiction of the illustration is extending beyond the size of the star moth, so we actually need the full 5x5 space, which we have here already established. So we can take our grid, I can duplicate that. Go to the spellcasting section. Okay, and here. Should be in the top right corner. Perfect. There. Ah, yes. We do need to do this. So we can then merge that down. Grid. We can take this grid and we can push it down to the bottom of the page. Bump, 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 bump. Bump. Trash. Clip. Clip. Now we can take our arrow. Transform. Beep-be-doo. Cool. And we can get number 2. There. 2. Ah! Now we've established that we can put the number in the upper left-hand corner of the grid position. So that turned out very nicely. Now we have a confirmed format for us to use with numbers. And I can then take the grid, drop it down to 50%. We can also, actually, let's take this back to 100%. Copy, paste. There. Merge. We're doing a mask right here to block that off, and we'll look at why we're doing that in a moment. So right now we want to copy, paste, no, copy, paste like that. Down, preserve. There. Maybe. Let's disable the layer mask for now. Drop this down here. Get you in frame. And merge. Merge down. Now we can get this into place. This is the kind of stuff that I won't be doing on stream a lot, but I want to show you the process so you know how it is that I'm producing what I'm producing while I'm not here, because this is stuff that needs to be done, but it's not necessarily very exciting to watch. Ideation and sketching tends to be stuff that people like to watch, and the theory of stuff. But as I only have so many hours a day that, copy paste. Since I only have so many hours a day that I can stream, I have to be kind of picky choosy about the content that I'm putting on to keep interest and to grow the channel and all the other corporatist ideals. But this is part of the process, so it's important to show you guys how it is that we do what we do. Cool, we're gonna send that to the edge of the page, merge down. And we can put this back into effect. There, now we have a right proper grid. So there's our grid, and then when we put in the when we put in the block out, we can see that this all fits inside of space. I'm playing with the margins because I do that. I don't necessarily need to. We're actually going to take this there we go. Yeah, not the right choice. Let's go back to where it was. Get back, Loretta. The original thought was to pick up the whole thing, which I can do. Make it fit in the space. Now that we know what our frame is, the 6x6 space that we have built, we can start looking at how we want to put this together. So I'm going to take the number of bubbles. I like the number of bubbles as they are. So I'm going to actually pick them up and pull them out of the group. So if I say want to change the size of this so it all fits in frame a little bit better, I can do that. Is that how I want to do this? Do that, it auto frames. I kind of like that, but I'm not necessarily sure if okay, I can just push this up a little bit. Get this. I wanted to get this out from underneath there because it felt a little squeezed. And since I have this convenient change in text line here, that actually lines up pretty nicely to have the aesthetics here. So I can afford to, but I don't want to bleed that out too much. So I do want to drop this down a little bit. I could. I don't necessarily have to have these. I could do this instead, and then have the. Free transform. I could do this instead. That. That's not bad. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, makes sense. And it allows me to push this down a little bit more. Actually, that looks really nice because I have a little space here away from the margin. I like the idea of it being in the upper left-hand corner like that, but I'm going to have to pay attention to that in the future to make sure that shit lines up properly to be able to frame around like that. And I can afford to push this down a little bit further to get that 2 away from the text a little bit more. 1, 2, 3. I like how that sits. Okay, cool. So I think we're in a good place with where those things are at. Let's do like this. Get away from the edge a little bit over here. Definitely blop out all that, but I see I have this open space here, so I can technically futz around with how close the grid is to the text. I don't have an established rule about that, which is what we're kind of exploring right now. Take the grid and drop it down to the background a little bit more so it has less presence or importance. And now that we have this this border, see I can smudge in I can fade it out, right? I don't feel like I want to have like a starred backdrop behind everything. Like that feels distracting. I like, maybe in some instances I will. I don't have a rule about that yet, but currently my idea is that I don't, I want to keep the illustration as clean as I can while using the icon, using the actual tokens that we're providing with the supplement so that you can just literally pick up your tokens and build this scenario yourself, for you to be able to see how this interacts inside of your VTT or on your tabletop. So right now I'm just trying to fade the edges a little bit. Maybe I don't need like a set language of how much this stuff fades in and out, but I like the idea. Like I want to avoid hard breaks. I like the idea of fading in so that it's like the whole idea is that these grids are almost endless. Like it's infinite size being scaled in this instance into 50-foot blocks. So I want to keep the edges of the grid faded out so that they're like, aesthetically, there is no end to it. It just fades out of view, which is kind of the Ludo narrative of how this mapping system works, and that it scales out to whatever you need it to be, depending on what your encounter is. So the idea of having no hard end to the grid, just having a micro zoom in on this particular instance of these ships interacting inside this very small space compared to how large of an area that these spells can actually cover is, I think, the essence of what we're trying to achieve with these amplified spells in the first place. So I feel like approaching the aesthetic this way is self-reinforcing. I'm using a lot of action buzzwords, but hopefully that's actually making sense, you know? Like, these buzzwords exist because they're relevant. There you go. They're just relevant. Fade effect should really be starting. Like, I can probably eat up half of that margin there with absolute, and then fade in from the edge of the margin there, like that. So the margin itself becomes a ludonarrative space of like this spell. This page talking about spells is unto itself only an instance or a zoom in of the larger scale of mechanics that are introduced inside of this game as a whole. That's a little heady, and it reads into it a little bit, but it's there. That acknowledgement is legit. It legitimately exists. So I like how that's self-reinforcing, which means that I want to stay away from filigree going up the page because it would interrupt this this grid interaction. So I'm specifically going to limit any kind of margin filigree to the navigation rail at the bottom of the page, and then we're going to do and then we'll have those same icons at the bottom of the page. I think what we want to do is have them I recognize I'm hypocritically not adhering to my own don't put stars in the background sort of idea here, but I think I can break my own rules. We'll see. I may decide to get rid of the star backdrop on this. This was a first take on that map page. See, I don't have any star background on this one, and I do that same fade effect here as well, and I like that. Although I need to switch this out because we've changed the look of the Hammerhead ship since having done that. But combat, and then I can put the combat icon next to the combat section here, and it'll be the same as the combat icon down here. But ships and equipment has the largest chapter header, I believe. Equipment and ships, and there's still plenty of room here for me to drop the icon here at the end of this chapter, which you'll then see at the bottom of on the railing down here. It'd be about, ships and equipment would be about here, and then we'll have combat here, and then spellcasting, and then exploration, hazards, creature menagerie, appendix 1, a random system generator, and then appendix 2, Light of Xaryxis. That'll all sit very, very nicely, I think. All right, that's the thoughts behind that. So let's get back to work. Happy with how this is sitting. If we get rid of the background frame, that's roughly how it looks. So it's respecting the text around it, still reinforcing the idea of a grid. That's how it sits on the page. I like that. There's not enough space down here for me to build a spot illustration without getting in the way of the railing. So in this instance, this is the only illustration that we're going to need to have on a page. And once I figure out this number 1 and number 3 font, technically this illustration is done, and we're done with that page. That whole page is done. It will be done. Thy will be done. Thy page, thy shall be done. But again, it didn't take me 20 hours to make this, because we already spent 6 hours making the Starmoth token, and we spent an hour building these aerocraft tokens. So those are all resolved. So us having done all that work at the front end of building out all these icons and token art is now we now can just integrate it into the work with this grid fashion, and that becomes our diagram for the page, which is very quick. So we want to have a mix of this diagram language and blend it in with the with actual illustration stuff. I could technically take this and make this a similar diagram as that, but I want to have a blend of actual illustration with diagrams. And if I do my job right, I'll be able to have the ships have the same general feel as these tokens that we've built, but modeled in a three-dimensional space, so that you can pull that idea anyway. This is me geeking out, so I'm going to stop doing that, and let's get back to work. But I think and we're going to go back to the 5-point font that we were using. 5. There. The number 1. No, that was way too big. Flip horizontal now, baby. There we go. Merge down. One, 2. Yeah, that's it. I'm happy with that. 1 and then 2. Nice. And then we're going to drop the opacity on that 2 a lot. Boom, 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 boom. Copy paste. Free transform. Flip vertical now, baby. The number 3. The noble number 3. All right, so hey, I don't know if anyone's around, Hermetico or anybody else, but does that your eyes are different from mine. When I have to read text, I zoom into this point. Like, this is about as close as I need to get for me to be able to read, because I'm fucking blind. And at this scale, that 1, 2, 3 reads super clean for me. But somebody like y'all who may have, like, you know, normal vision, you might be reading text like out like this, and it still looks like the 1, 2, 3 comes through pretty clean. But like out here, I bet that's okay. And I like the idea of these bubbles. I'm going to keep the bubbles. The bubbles are important, I think, but I don't think I necessarily need to keep them at 100%. So that's what we're going to mess with again now real quick. That's what we're going to mess with real quick before we sign off on this particular illustration. So let's see, because we're establishing language here, right? So let's see. Go down to... That feels too faded. Faded. Let's go to 75. 75 feels pretty good. I didn't like the harsh black of the bubble. Let's go with 75%. Let's see how. This is probably a realistic size for most of my visioned audience. Now, when we go back to our square block here, set good, set good, set good. Drop that. Drop that. Drop that. Go back to here. Nope, that's not how we want to do that. Here. Diagram. Drop that in there. Now we have copy these, and we can go back to File, New, Image, Crop. File, save as, save to your computer, page 48, AOE diagram. And then we can convert this to, leave it as a Photoshop. But now we also file save as, save to our computer, PNG, save. Oh yeah, that arrow. I need to fix that fucking arrow. We'll fix that in a second, but I wanted to prove a point here. So the image size here, right? 300 dpi, it is 3.75 inches high and 4.563 inches wide. So let's go into Photoshop. Oh yeah, additional equipment. Let's get back down. Get back, Loretta. It'll be nice when this whole thing is hyperlinked to be able to bounce around inside the document much more quickly. There's a lot of shit in this book, man. There's a lot of shit in this book. Here we are. All right, so we're going to now insert a shape, which is going to be a square, which will be here. And now we can go to our shape format, size, and we know the height is 3.75. 3.75. And we know the width is 4.563. Copy. Size. Nudge it up against the D, and it lines up. See, it's automatically lining up the way that we need it to. And we can push this up here to the top of the targeting at the T. Next thing we do is format auto shape picture. Go with line is no color, and then the fill effect is a picture, and then we select the picture, and then we fetch it from a file, which is going to be spellcasting, rotate fill effect with shape, bam. There you go. Now it fits in the page. That is our page illustration. Fits just like we expected it. That's how you do it. That's how we drop it in. And now, since this is a transparent background, here, check this out. Well, let's what went wrong? Are you not acknowledging my transparency? Let's do this instead as a file. Save as. Damn it! It's been a while. Let's go to a GIF instead, so we can have the transparency. That should work. Yes, preserve transparency. Thank you. What is going on? There's something weird going on when they... Are they not... Oh, there was an update in Windows recently that it's actually pissing me off right now because they had... What is going on with this? Huh. Timer there. This isn't respecting. Maybe, draw. They made changes to shapes, but the shapes should be transparencies. This is me looking pretty foolish right now. So let's see, insert picture. Format picture. File. Why isn't this working? This is, That didn't work. Why didn't that work? Picture format. And we need to format this. Nope, wait. Well, now I'm looking pretty silly, aren't I? Apparently, they changed the rules on how these tools work, and I need to figure out how that's supposed to work now. Position, text wrapping, behind the text. That's weird. And this has got some sort of weird buffer going on. Huh. There's some sort of weirdness going on here. I'm going to have to end up spending some spare time figuring all that futz out. This is embarrassing because apparently I don't know how my tools work anymore. This is the first time I've attempted to do this, and I didn't think that them updating those files would be a problem, but apparently it is. That's terrifying. My whole workflow process is about to potentially change. Thanks, Microsoft. No, really, thank you. I mean, that's where it's supposed to sit on the page. Well, I mean, worst comes to worst, I can still use that same thing, and once we have our color figured out for the background here, I can just not do a transparent background and just have it sync with how the background is supposed to look. So it's not that big of a tragedy. It's just a change. My intention was to have this as a transparency floating over the top of the background image, but since apparently that's not going to happen, I will need to get rid. We'll need to establish sooner than later what the background texture color is going to be here on the document, and then just not have a transparency background. Just have this all merged down, and then go back in with the shape tool that we had a moment ago. So it's not a tragedy. It's just an unexpected hiccup in what I thought my workflow was going to be. And you got to see it live here on stage. Phil screwing all this stuff up like a professional. So if you're intimidated by the process of making a PDF, maybe this will show you that any idiot can do it and that you don't need to be intimidated by it at all. I'm noticing that that 2 and that 3 have a different thickness. I'm not really sure why that would be. It's fun when you make mistakes in front of people. So let's see, what do we need to do? We need to thin this up a little bit so that it conforms with the language of the 3 and the 1. So let's do that. Honestly, it wouldn't be honest and authentic if I wasn't fucking up in front of you. So that's part of the job, making mistakes and figuring out how to fix them. So good reframe, Phil. Good reframe. Way to keep your delicate ego intact. Good job. I feel like that 2 has just a little bit too much going on there. That curve. Let's get that all. Should be like that. Curve that tip just a bit. There we go. There we go. Nice. All right, fixed. It feels a lot better. Yeah, there we go. That should work. Transform. Flip vertical. Beep, 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 beep. Clean that up a little bit like that. There we go. And then duplicate that layer. Yeah, that picture bubble thing isn't actually that big of a deal. Once we get the background established, it should be fine. It's just not the workflow I wanted. Let's reduce the size of that a touch. I like using Word because it's free. Like a lot of people have access to Word, so I like using it because it's if I'm trying to demonstrate how to build these things and how anyone can potentially do it. I mean, Photoshop aside, you could use GIMP if you wanted for free. There's a lot of free tools, but Microsoft Word is something that a lot of folks have free access to. So I like using it. I'm familiar with it, and I've been using it forever. Now we got to build a new arrow tool. Establish the language that we want. Good arrow. Luckily, like ships, we only have to draw half of it. You can do cool stuff like this. There we go. Duplicate the layer, free transform, vertical. If we drop that down to 75%, it should. I'd probably actually drop that down to 50%. Maybe a little less aesthetic, a little less stylized curve. So let's minimize that. Make that a little more sharp. duplicate that. Transform. Flip vertical. What if we ducks are out and playing? That's awesome. I love ducks. Oh, wrong shape. This one. I like that fade. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that. Let's see about dropping that to 50. And we can have the fade effect leaving the square, but then have the full effect here past that line, so that the fade is indicating leaving the square, while the full illustration, or the full opacity, eyes are crossing there for a second. Yeah, I think that feels right. Mm-hmm. All right, so this illustration is technically done. We still need to build the background so that we can have this properly merge and play with the tools that we now have to use in Photoshop in Microsoft Word. But we will do that. It's 8:30 now. I am happy here. That is good. Woof. Okay, that may be a difficulty. Oh no, we can put the image, we can layer the image so it's behind the text. So we shouldn't have a problem with this one breaking, like with a box, but breaking text. It should be able to push to the background. Alright. Let's give ourselves another 20. And then we'll take a break for a couple hours. We'll come back and we'll do some martial powers this afternoon. Happy with that. Happy with that. So we can put a lock on that one for now because it's actually done. This is the next one we were illustrating. What is, something went wonky. Yeah, I like this one. Yeah, something like that. Yep. Let's fade that guy. Let's go take a look at our wasp ship. Gunner, gunner, gunner. Excuse me. Back here like this. That. There we go. Wow, this is actually a lot easier to illustrate than I had anticipated it would be. I'm going to desperately knock on wood to make sure I don't eat crow on that here like in 2 minutes, but my drafting skills are definitely paying off. Here, and there. Ba, ba, ba. That swings back. So we need to have, this is basically sidelong like that. And then this curves back like this. That's right. And then these curve like that. Kick back like this. Here. Ah, yeah, okay, so there, and then we can do this. There we go. There we go. There, nice and clean. Yeah, not bad for a rough sketch. Not the final piece, but it's a nice sketch, so I'm pretty happy with that for now. That'll end up being a cool little spot illustration. Take that and that, put those together and go trash. Tyrant versus Wasp, AoE, targeting. Stop that there. Now what happens if we nope, wait. Free transform. I think I like the other way. Yeah, super cool. Right on. So that is that's resolved for now, but not finished. And then 5. So when we come back tomorrow, we'll work on notable spells. We have a selection of spells that we can choose from on this page. Fairy Fire, Featherfall, Long Strider, Disguise Self, Detect Poison and Disease, Color Spray, Message, Blade Ward, Ensnaring Strike, and Divine Favor. And we have this small little spot here to put an illustration in. All right, well, my gut's telling me to stop for now, so I'm going to follow my gut. And news says be done, so I'm going to hit save and be done. So I'm going to be back I think I'm going to be back like in maybe 4 hours to do a couple hours of martial powers. I'm not positive on my timing. I think I have a meeting scheduled this afternoon that I need to maneuver around, but I should be on for about 2.5 hours later on today to work on martial powers. I'll work on the Totem Barbarian, and then we'll randomly choose another one. So we should be doing 2 of those today. So yeah, we keep doing this stuff, and we'll keep doing other stuff until everything is done, and then we make something new. And let me just save that. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll be back tomorrow morning to do more of this. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. I'll see you hopefully in a couple hours. Martial Powers. Best way to keep track of me is on Twitter at Phil Kearney. Otherwise, like and subscribe so that you can get notification that we go live, and help me build my subscriber base. It'd be greatly appreciated if you take interest in this type of work. You want to see me stumbling around and eventually winning the day. Everyone likes a hero's journey, so be a hero. Cheers.